That was such a gracious audience, our 92nd Street Y audience. Thank you. Well, I'll introduce one more time our producer, Marta Kaufman, our director, Sophie Sartain, and our glorious subject, Gloria Allred. Now, before we start, there was this very dashing legal scholar in this film, handsome of all get out.
Blonde?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we know who he is? Because I think we should put him on this stage at the 92nd
And
Street.
I think actually he needs to have a matching scarf.
Yay!
All right. I wanted one of
Allred.
those. Thank you. Look at this. This is if you're an Academy Award nominator, judge. Here, this is what you want to have. All right. Thanks. Thank you for this. Now we're really on the same team. I should say, Gloria, who I've just met for the very first time tonight, her lovely granddaughter was a student of mine many years ago. Yeah, and she was wonderful. And in fact, when your daughter took a number of my classes also in an audit, so I feel like I've sort of known you, the legacy of Gloria Allred. Let's start with you, Gloria. You spent an entire career helping to tell the stories of people who would otherwise be unrepresented and largely voiceless. These fine ladies turned the camera on you and told your story, which is not something that you normally do. Your job is to tell, especially the way you practice law. That's entirely what your mission is.
Well, actually, seeking justice is my mission and empowerment.
Right.
Not just their telling of their stories, but also seeking justice for them.
But you know, as I said in the film, I'm quoting myself. What you have often is a situation where the prosecutors aren't representing the victims. So you have a completely unrepresented class of people who everyone would assume has a lawyer. And that's never the case unless they have Gloria Allred. I mean, that's really what the Brown family discovered in the O.J. Simpson case, right? They're sitting there every day, and their family is completely unrepresented. Marcia Clark does not work for them. Chris Darden didn't work for them. You worked for them. So, yes, it's true, all in the spirit of seeking justice, but also to give a place for victims to come forward to tell their stories of the feeling of injustice so that they're not silenced. And I'm wondering, the film itself, how do you experience knowing that your story was now told to the world through Netflix?
Well, just by the way, to put a little footnote on the first part of it, though, for example, in the Bill Cosby case, which we saw some of the buildup to, we know some of those women whom you heard tell their stories in the film became what we call in Pennsylvania prior bad act witnesses in the criminal trial. And there was only one that was permitted to testify in the first criminal trial. She was in the film, Kelly. And that ended in a mistrial because only one was allowed to testify in addition to the victim.
Now, can you just tell
then the second criminal trial, 3 out of the 5 prior bad act witnesses were my clients. They testified. They were also in the film.
Right.
And so they became very important witnesses because there was a conviction of Mr. Cosby. And some of the jurors told some of the reporters that it was because those other witnesses testified and they felt there was a pattern of conduct.
Well, I have 2 things. One, maybe to explain to the audience about what you mean by prior bad act witnesses. But before we even talk about that, what it does also suggest is that those women who you represented finally had a day in court.
That's true.
Right, because that...
To the extent that they could tell their stories. No charges were filed for them. But they were very important witnesses in the criminal case.
Because otherwise, because of the statute of limitations and other reasons, they were not the subjects of that case at all, and they were never the subject of a case, yet they served as a witness in another case.
In the criminal case, right.
And the idea of the prior bad act is that you have a limited number of people that can testify that there was something similar to what took place happened to them. There's a limit to that because judges feel it would be overly prejudicial if they let 50 women tell their stories.
In
So-
Pennsylvania, there's a theory called absence of mistake, so that if you have these other witnesses, same or similar acts, then the argument is that Mr. Cosby could not have been mistaken about whether Andrea Constant consented or not to his sexual advances with her when she was incapacitated, because if he is intending to incapacitate women, he can't be mistaken as to whether they're consenting. He knows they can't consent if he's drugging them. That's how that theory goes.
By the way, that was a great first-year law school criminal law thing. We just heard, there are not many law students here, but you take
Okay.
notes on that.
All right.
That was worth it.
But back to the film.
Back-
So,
Okay, so let's go back to you, though, the subject of the film. What kind of an experience has it been after helping to tell the story of so many of your clients to be the subject of this film itself? Your story was told.
well, as you could see, Sophie had to pry it out of me. It's not what I wanted to do, but she felt that it was relevant, and maybe Sophie can share why.
Well, actually, let me just say I can ask the two of you the same question, and to flesh this out. Both of you have made many films about women, both in documentary film. March and I were just talking. I think I mentioned the Netflix series now that's Grace and Frankie. Strong women characters, the lives of women are important. You did a documentary about Hannah Senesh. What makes Gloria Allred such a rich subject for a Netflix documentary?
Please.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, what an incredible story. Her backstory, I mean, your life, the things that you had to overcome, and that inform what she does every day. So, I mean, Gloria has a book called Fight Back and Win, where she talks about her life. And I had read that book and said to my co-director, Roberta, somebody has to make a film about this woman. There's so much more to it than what we see in the media of her story. So obviously we were going to press Gloria maybe to some places that she didn't want to talk about, but it seems to inform so much of what she does every day that we felt like it was very important.
And you know, we get comments a lot about how timely it was, but I think the truth of it is it's always time for this story. So getting the opportunity to do this with Sophie and Roberta and Gloria to make this film, the fact that it came out when it did was fortuitous, but not the reason we did it.
Well, I can't, sorry, Sophie, you're going to be disappointed. I can't remember when you filmed me. So I don't know how many years ago it was. By the way, my agent sent me so many times to get into this movie. You know, I thought you were going to take a Yale man. But
It was early 2017.
okay, so give us a sense of the time sequence. Where were we in terms of, Marta says, the timeliness of it today? This is, the making of the film precedes the hashtag #MeToo.
Precedes Cosby.
It precedes Cosby as an actual case where the sympathies changed.
Well, and
shifted.
an amazing thing is, too, Thane, that when they approached me, it was before Cosby. It was before all of that. It took 2 years to persuade me. And ultimately, when they did, then I was thinking, like, well, what are they going to cover? and then after I finally agreed, then it was within a couple of months, suddenly the Bill Cosby story broke.
Right.
And then it was off and running.
I think I sent an email to Gloria when that first came out and said something like, oh, Gloria, are you aware of this? And she said, yes, I know about it. And then boom,
Yeah, right.
she started bringing out the
Amazing.
women.
I know, but
2014, the end of 2014. Is when
yes,
it
and
started.
then a year ago, October, your heads must have exploded during the Harvey Weinstein revelations.
Right.
Because
I think that's the right term. Our heads exploded.
Right, I mean-
for so many reasons.
Yeah.
One of them being, we were basically finished the film,
Yeah.
and you couldn't do the film without acknowledging what was going on with Harvey Weinstein and all the other.
Well, can you help us with this? Because you've been making dramatic things on film for many, many years. What do you mean you finished the film? You mean when the film is finished, you can't just go, Sophie, get your camera. We have to do something on Harvey Weinstein. It just doesn't work that way, right?
No, it doesn't. But we kind of did.
You
Yeah,
really,
and you had that,
had-
and then,
did. We
and
had
then
to
there
have
I was
going.
with Roy Moore, and right.
Right.
Oh, we
and
couldn't.
Sophie said, we have to stop.
I said,
we had to
Gloria,
recut.
please.
No, I was doing
We
the
had to
Roy
recut
Moore.
it.
you have to recut it to be able to tell this piece of the story.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was extraordinary. It was like a perfect storm
Right.
of things that were all happening at the time. I assume Netflix loved this. The timing was ridiculous.
Right.
Well, then it premiered at the
At Sundance.
Sundance Film Festival earlier this year, and the day before it premiered was the Women's March this year, and they did that, they called it the Respect Rally at the Sundance Film Festival. That was their equivalent of the Women's March, and people came out, and then the Women's March was in the film the next day. It was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now, was the Gloria Allred's story, I mean, I don't know how these things get worked out when the two of you approached Netflix. In 2014, could it have been made in 2011? I mean, Netflix, I don't even know if it was around. Can we say that there's a movement that the storytelling dimension of the discrimination against women is simply penetrated the culture in such a way that there's more of an openness to do all sorts of things, like making art out of it, making a documentary out of it?
I think we could have made the film anytime because Gloria has an incredible story that needed to be told. That said, she's always, what we wanted to show in the film is how she's always been so ahead of her time. And we felt as we were making the film that the world was kind of finally catching up to Gloria. So I do think the timing was amazing for us. Because it just kind of cascaded into Me Too, and that actually reframed everything that we'd filmed up to that point.
I think it would have been a different film had we done it in 2011. You know, I think there was, because of the timing, because Gloria was so involved in so many of these cases, Summer Zervos, all the Cosby women, it immediately allowed our audience to connect with it in a contemporary way. It wasn't just historical, and I think had we done it in 2011, it would have felt more historical than contemporary.
I also wonder, you know, I'm of an age where I remember the Dinah Shore show and the Merv Griffin show.
I know, right?
I know this stuff.
Love
I
it.
watched this stuff. So all that was familiar to me, all those shows. But one of the things is,
Did you love the fact that Merv Griffin acted as though
yes,
he was not gay?
I know. there is a wink there. that-
Yeah, right.
But only some of us picked up what?
Yeah.
But in those sequences, those early sequences of Dinah Shore, and it does seem that there's a mocking tone towards everything Gloria represented, right? Even other women played that role, right? I mean, shamefully, right, played the role. So you had to sit there, and you were so gracious, smiling and having to sit there and listening to the. But I do think that.
Well, it's because the subordinated class is always supposed to smile.
Right, and it was the price of
You know.
admission, right? To be
Right.
on the show,
Well,
you couldn't be the shrieking one.
it's the price of existence.
Right. But I do think that has clearly changed. Right. That's a much I missed that. That's a much stronger comment than I,
Well, it's true.
yeah. But what I'm wondering, though, is that it does speak to an openness, right, that would have been harder to make this film. It just seems with each year. The reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering whether the three of you think there's been a change in the culture, that simply, you know, now maybe more so than ever, but there's a much greater acceptance, a willingness to believe survivors with the hashtag, right? That there is some of the work that
It depends on who.
Okay, because I want to talk about the Kavanaugh hearings too. We're not done with that.
That comes to mind.
But still, it does seem to me that if I was in the Gloria Allred business, this is the best time to be in it, right? That people are more willing, they're accepting, They recognize that there's injustices to women, discrimination.
I don't know who the they is, unless you're talking about New Yorkers.
All right, let's hear about that. So you actually don't think that the business is necessarily changed. The work.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the business.
Well, the work of Gloria Allred.
Okay. Well, the struggle continues, and let's not fool ourselves,
Okay.
because the whole world is not New York and, thank God, blue California. And I travel around a lot. I go to states in the South, states in the Midwest, and, you know, it's 2 steps forward, 1 back, and we have to, you know, work to bring everybody along. Okay, we're not there yet. We're far from there.
But you said there's a bit that Sophie got from you when said, you know, was it at a camp or something? You recited the Virginia Slims, something, you've come a long way, baby.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
Gloria says, did you actually feel like we've come a long way?
Yeah,
Right?
and that was in the 70s.
Right, and you're now
That was
saying,
3,000 women and me in the woods. It
Right.
was the Women's Music and Comedy Festival
Right.
that used to take place.
and here we are 2018 at Folks at the Y, and you're still saying there's a lot more to do, right? From your perspective, we're not there. So that is to some degree disheartening. It makes me think of President Obama, who said when he was running for office, we're living in a post-racial society, and then we discovered for 8 years that it was not a post-racial society. And I wonder whether that's what you're saying about the women's movement.
Well, I don't think we should be disheartened. It's just a challenge. It's always been a challenge for women. And it's still a challenge for women. And we still have a long, long way to go. Because I always say, you know, conservatives say, but Gloria, look, in the last 50 years, you've come so far. And I always say, as a progressive, I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. The gold standard is equality, equal protection under the law. Look how far we still have to go. So
You know,
that's how we have to look at it, right?
You
and,
know,
and the extent of the backlash is a sign that we are making progress. If we weren't, there would be no backlash.
speaking of backlash, one person that we could judge the progress of the women's movement was it the Schitzels? Is that what their name was? The family, the woman that you debated in some of the, was it Schitzels?
Oh, the
Oh,
Schmitz.
Schmitz.
Schmitz. I don't know how I got the Schitzels.
Mary
The Schmitz.
Schmitz.
Your daughter says in the movie, she says, oh, we knew the Schmitz.
Yes, we
Schmitz."
did.
So the
I
que-
knew him and I sued him, yeah.
Okay, so what happened to the Schmitz?
Well, I have no friends anymore, I think.
What about the Schmitz children today? Do they think differently? Do we know anything about the Schmitz?
Oh, yes, you know quite a bit, especially about one of them.
I'd like to hear.
And I don't think you know. I think you really think you know.
No, I have no idea.
Okay, so
I can't believe I
they always
felt-
put themselves there. He was John Bircher,
Yeah.
far right wing. His wife was even farther right wing, I think. But I was on a television show with her every week
Right.
called Free for All. And they came to my home and all of that. But anyway, they put themselves out as sort of the perfect American family. And, I'm progressive, as though my family wouldn't have family values. The truth was, years ago, you may remember a young woman who was very big in the news. Her name was Mary Kay Letourneau. And she had sexually abused, she was a teacher, one of her students, remember that? And she ended up having his baby, and she ended up being on probation. She violated the probation, and she ended up being sent to prison for many years. Mary Kay Letourneau was the daughter of the Schmitzes. Many people didn't know that.
That is a great reveal.
There you go for the American family.
An all-American family, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
the Schmitzes.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad they represented themselves so ably.
And I don't say she had a relationship with them. I say that's sexual abuse if you're using a child.
Okay, I'm glad I asked that question.
Yeah, okay. But I just want to share one other thing, which is I really want to commend Sophie and Marta for having the vision and taking the risk. Because unlike with a lot of documentaries where you kind of know where it's going, you know what the story is, they didn't know the crazy wild adventures that I get involved in, because lots of times I don't know what's going to happen next. So for example, decided, okay, they're going to go to the Women's March with me, had no clue what was going to happen. And maybe you could tell a little bit about what happened, how I ended up going up the steps,
Oh,
which
well,
you
This
had
is
no
the
idea.
scene at the end.
Yeah, she had no idea what was
We
going to
just-
happen.
Yeah, we were with Gloria at the Women's March the day before, and then the next day she needed to go take a train to New York. And so I said, Gloria, how about if we pick you up an hour early and we just go over to the monuments and have a few quiet shots?
Of just you alone.
Yes,
right?
of you standing at the Lincoln Memorial. We had a.
And
so
I said,
had-
no, I'm so tired, please. I'm really standing for hours in the Women's March.
Right.
So Sophie said, oh, come on, one shot and you're on the train.
And then we'll take you to Union Station. And there was a crowd there. The park police did not want us up there. They were worried for Gloria's safety, and it was getting a little, heated. And so they booted us off of there, and my cameraman went down to the base. And I thought I was walking down the steps with Gloria, and then I lost her
Well,
because she just
I
drifted
forgot to
into.
tell you, I was like,
She drifted into the crowd.
I
Well,
saw
she
the
was
crowd.
pulled into it.
well, I saw the
couldn't
crowd
resist.
and I thought, all these people are protesting there. I shouldn't be just like standing there. I'm not, a Hollywood person that would just go here. I've got to go support the protesters. So I just moved in and then we got separated.
I know, and then the next thing I knew, there was this kerfuffle around her, and there was a guy in her face, and I ran
And
over
the
there.
Make America Great hats.
And I ran over there and just shot it with my iPhone.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And what
I'd lost it's right here. This
I was
iPhone
in-
6.
Yeah, I was in with what my daughter would call one of those Lucy moments where she says, Lucy, and I decided I was just having fun. I was just going to stand behind these guys with the Make America Great hats and just have my little face behind them. And they wouldn't even know I was there. So, but then they turned around, which had no idea that they were going to suddenly turn around. And they saw me, and it was like, Gloria Allred. It was like the worst nightmare suddenly. And that's when the whole thing started. And Sophie couldn't get close. And
Well, I rushed over there, but I was also I was scared. She was not scared at all, but I was scared.
I would think as a subject, both of you have played roles as directors, showrunners, writers for scripted shows, documentaries. Hannah Senesh is not alive, so she didn't have to worry about. Here you had a living, breathing person who I just met tonight, and I can represent. She's not easily directed, right? I mean, she's Gloria Allred. She's going to go where she's going to go. You literally had to follow her. This
That's right.
seems to me a very complicated. This isn't just a matter of looking at old footage of Gloria Allred. It's chasing her around, right?
We were chasing her. Yeah, there's a lot of shots of her from behind in the airports because we were running after her.
And because she can go faster than any of us. She's just faster than we are. It's also, it from a storytelling perspective, to be able to get to mix up what is historical, what is biography, and what is happening in the moment is an exciting way to tell stories.
And you don't get to do that very often.
I don't get to do that ever.
So that's one of the reasons you would want to be in a project like this.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
and who knew what was going to happen with the election? Oh my gosh.
Right.
Right.
We certainly didn't. And truthfully, through the whole process, we didn't know where anything was going. The Cosby case, the election, we had no idea, and it was a wild ride.
How have people responded to the film? I mean, I know it's received excellent reviews, but it's made the circuits, and then of course it's on Netflix, so there's immediate responses. You can watch it tonight again if you want it on Netflix. Can you just tell us how people have responded to this film?
People have responded very emotionally. That has been, I think, one of the surprising joys of this experience is people feeling inspired and motivated and emotional and saying, now what do we do? I mean, what more can you ask from a film?
Wow. And a document,
Yeah.
right? It's a document that you've put out into the world. Sophie?
And again, for me, it's all about empowerment, for women to feel empowered and hopefully inspired to want to take action in their own lives.
And you think the film can do that?
Well, I've had people tell me it has done that for them, and I don't know the extent of it. I had a woman write to me from another country, because it's shown in many countries now on Netflix, and she said, I was sexually abused by my parents when I was a child. I then was trafficked as a child, sex trafficked, and I've had just a miserable life. I bought gas. I was going to commit suicide. And she said, I saw the film, and I've decided I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to the police. I'm reporting my parents. I'm going to take action. And thank you so much. So that's what it's all about. They see, for it to resonate in their lives. Because, we can't help all women, but what we can do is inspire them to take action. And not to turn their anger inward. And all have anger and rage about something in their lives. Often more than one something, a number of somethings. Because we always say the women's movement is unique in that it's the only movement in which the participants become more radical as they get older. Do you agree? There you go. So they see something in there that resonates in their life. And they decide, instead of becoming depressed, alcoholic, or turning to drugs, controlled substances, or all of the above, they're going to turn it outward, and they see women who've suffered and taking action to do something. Everybody can do something. They can write a check. They can lobby for a political a person who's running for office. They can become the person who's running for office. They can file a civil lawsuit. They can perhaps become a witness in a criminal case, or become a victim in a criminal case, and participate and assist law enforcement. There's so much they can do. They can speak out. They can make their voices heard. So to learn that, look, there's a lot they can do, and they can help to win change. They can be the change they wish to see in the world, as Gandhi said. For them to know that they can be the change, that they should be the change, that they are the change. This is what we call empowerment. And empowerment is contagious. When women in their own families start to do that, they become role models for change. For their daughters, for their sisters, for their mothers, for their aunts, in their workplaces, in their communities, in the world. It has that ripple effect. So that's why I call it the age of empowerment, and we hope that we're a small part of that empowerment, and also to inspire men to stand up for women. And I think we saw that in the Women's March, right? We saw that. We saw the men pushing their little ones in strollers with the signs about supporting women. We support our daughters, we support, the wives, and the sons walking with their moms, supporting their moms. It's a beautiful thing, and that's what we need, because we need everybody in this together.
Sophie, you hear Gloria talk about the impact of the film. Was this on your mind while you're filming this? When you're shooting all this, you must have looked through hundreds of hours of tape, because she was on television all the time. Did you imagine that this was what you would get, and this might have this kind of an impact?
I'm thrilled. I knew that there was so much that she had contributed, and that was really our goal, was to show the depth of Gloria's contributions, because for me, one of the parts I love about showing it to audiences is that feeling of discovering Gloria that people have, thinking, oh, I had no idea. I had no idea that she's been doing this for 40 years.
Or I thought I had an idea, but I was wrong.
Right.
I thought I knew who she was.
Right. So I love that and that's just a great human moment when you think you know somebody, and then you discover something unbelievable about them that you had no idea about. And I love that audiences have that experience as they're watching it. And I just wanted to shine a spotlight on the incredible contribution she's made for decades, in her work.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So,
And I want to say how fortunate I am, because we know the issues of not a lot of women directors are given an opportunity to direct a film, even to produce films. So here we have two very talented director-producers, and Roberta Grossman, who's not here, who was an essential part of all of this, and others in the Hannah.
Oh, yeah.
So, to have that vision and to have the opportunity to show their talents is really extremely important. And we thank Netflix for
agree.
that, too.
But I would also say, Marta and Sophie, in all of your past work, there has always been an effort to showcase women and the lives of women. And maybe you can, and I think the Gloria Allred project is such a nice vehicle to sort of enhance the catalog of work that you've done. But can you speak a little about, in this age of empowerment of women, how important it is for there to be filmmakers who are women? Now, we actually, the Forum on Law, Culture, and Society, if you've been following us for years, we have an international short film competition where from around the world, we host it every year. A short film is made about law, human rights, moral justice, injustice. And it's 15 minutes or less, or shorter.
That's because women don't have too many rights.
Right. Well, no, but I'm saying we
If
have
you
a
did,
category.
you could make a longer film.
We have a category. We have a category for best female director, right? We just honor
true.
a best female director, and I'm wondering. So this is important. We understand it's important. Can we speak a little about the importance of making films about women and by women?
Sure. Don't get me started. This could be a long conversation. No, I believe the only way that we're going to get stories about women is for women to tell them, because men sure as hell aren't. I had an experience a couple years ago where we were looking to do a film about a woman, and we were told Hollywood doesn't want to make movies about women unless you have Sandra Bullock or Meryl Streep in it, and otherwise forget it. It's just never going to happen. This was told to me by a man, a white man, duh. And it makes you think, all right, then I have to prove them wrong. I have to prove them wrong. We have to prove that we as women can make stories about women that people are going to come watch. And in that sense, I think there's a certain responsibility on the audience to acknowledge those films, to go see films that are made by and about women, and not just sort of let them be at a distance.
Because those decisions, those green lighting decisions, will be made on that basis.
Correct.
So it's the equivalent of what Gloria said about men pushing the strollers.
That's right.
Another way to do that is show up to movies
That's right.
made by women, about women.
That is
Because
exactly right.
That's a way you can vote and send a message that you care about this kind of filmmaking.
And we're seeing the beginning of change. I mean, the fact that Black Panther did as well as it did, and Get Out did as well as it did, it shows that our audiences will look at more than just things about white men. And we're seeing more and more proof that what we're interested in is good story. So, my hope is that the more women make films, the more women who make films, the more films we can get that are about something important to see, and the more people will show up to see them.
Sophie, add to that?
I agree completely with Marta, and we are making inroads. At Sundance this year, there were lots of female directors, especially in the doc field. And so that's encouraging, but we still have a long way to go.
And it does seem this year alone, the Gloria Allred film, the Jane Fonda documentary, and the
RBG.
and the RBG film.
Oh, I didn't know there were other documentaries.
Yeah. Not tonight.
Thank
there
you
aren't.
for sharing.
Not tonight, because I only have this scarf. I don't have the other scarves.
Okay. But and this is not just a film. This is a time of political change. This is a time when women are saying, we're not going to be disrespected anymore by the man in the White House, whose name shall not be spoken. We're not going to be disrespected by men in our lives anywhere. We're going to stand up to it. And we are going to speak up and about it. And we are going to have women run for office. And they are going to win. And there's not going to be just a blue wave. There's going to be a pink wave. And it's going to happen in their workplaces, and they're going to stand up against sexual harassment and sexual abuse at home and in the streets and elsewhere. So if you're worried because you think that you may be next for them to name you and shame you or sue you or call you out, then just don't do it anymore. And teach your children at home. Respect your mama and respect your sisters. And they've earned your respect. We're not asking you to give them anything that they haven't earned. And treat other women too, like you want your mamas and your sisters and your aunts and grandmas to be treated. Because if not, there is going to be trouble for you. We have now power equalizing, a power dynamic equalizing with women. Women are empowered. And we're just not going to take it anymore. And that's what this film is about, is women finding the courage to speak through their pain, through the tears. And you see them being transformed, as I said in the film, from victim to survivor to fighter for change. And you see the difference it makes for them. You hear it in their voices. You can just feel it. And you see what happens when they decide they are going to be part of the change that they want to make, when they speak their truth to power, when they tell what they say is the truth about their lives. It's inspiring. I'm inspired by their courage every single day. It does take courage because, as I always say, fear is the weapon that keeps women down and subordinated. Once they break through that fear, that's when change is possible. And there are real risks. It's not a fantasy that there are risks in breaking out of that fear. But they've decided the benefits are greater than the risks. They've done that calculation. And it's just a beautiful thing to behold. It really is.
Well,
So,
I'm gonna take some questions from the audience, but first I have one question that's somewhat inspired by what you just said. Sophie may not remember this, but you found me for your film because I was quoted in a New York Times story about Gloria. There was a feature profile about Gloria Allred, and I was mentioned, quoted in it. And one of the things I was quoted about, which is how I made the cut, is that there have been lawyers who have said, well, Gloria Allred, it's all about press conferences, and it's about shining a light on her clients. It's not about going to courtrooms. It's not about the stuff that real lawyers do. And I was the one who said, what are you, nuts? That is law. That's how she's representing. Every client should have a lawyer where they feel that there's that level of representation that wants to be there, not just their representative, but give them a voice, give them a day in court when they would otherwise be shut out of it. And so, by the way, I can say that comment lots of people were critical of what I said because, in a way, you've sort of reinvented this 42 years ago with your partners. This is a very different practice, I think. The nature of your firm and how you practice is different. There are probably not many lawyers in the room, although some are getting CLE credit if they are. Can we speak to that, or do you not even accept the fact that what you're doing is different from what?
well, I mean, to some extent, but I mean, and we've litigated and won 3 cases in the California Supreme Court.
Right, it's clearly
We have won precedents, true legal precedents, in the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, in the California Court of Appeals, elsewhere. All right, so we are litigators, we are trial attorneys, we do all that, and we do lots of confidential settlements too, all over the country.
You're saying not everything is where you're in with a press conference.
I don't tell people you must have a voice publicly. It's not responsible to do that.
That's interesting.
I tell people, here are your options, A, B, C, D, the lawsuit, confidential settlement before a lawsuit, whatever it is. Here are the risks, here are the benefits of each option.
So not all
Depending on what your goal is and what you decide is good for you, and then I have to agree that I think is wise, then we might do one rather than another. Mm-hmm. But no, it's not everybody wants to be all over the news and on the internet. Some people actually do want to retain their privacy, and they have the right to that. They don't want their moms or anybody in their family or their community to know they were raped. They don't want anyone to know that they engaged in a settlement. They don't want to have anybody know how much they got in the settlement. They don't want anybody to know the facts. That is their right. And I always say, if they've been sexually assaulted, the choice has been taken away from them by the sexual predator. I want to restore choice and give them choices of their legal options, and then they'll decide what's best for them. They're adults, and I'm there to support them if I can in whatever decision. But it's not correct to think that everybody going to have a public voice, or that I would suggest that, because it is not in the best interest of some people.
Because, there is this image that we have, the evocative image of Gloria Allred sitting beside the client, holding hands, encouraging, truly doing something that most lawyers have no taste for.
Well, they've made the decision, and I'll be supportive of them.
Right.
In their decision, if I also agree that that's the best decision for them.
Okay. From the audience, what do you think about Dr. Blasey Ford and the Kavanaugh hearing? Now,
Right.
that can go on for a while. How do all three of you feel about that?
I think Dr. Ford was an articulate, powerful speaker who spoke her truth. I think we then saw an abomination, which we are now forced to live with.
It was not the court of law. There was no due process, either for Dr. Ford or for now Justice Kavanaugh. There was no burden of proof like there is in a court of law. The FBI so-called investigation was a sham. I'm sure there are many FBI agents who are embarrassed by it because it was limited in scope, it was limited in time. Some witnesses were never interviewed. That's not an investigation. It's just political theater. If it were a court of law, you wouldn't have a judge who's already made up his mind or her mind before she comes into the hearing. That's ridiculous. That's what you had here. This is Senate Judiciary Committee. It's all about politics. Let's not kid ourselves. So nobody got a fair hearing. And do we know the truth? Well, we know what we heard. We reached our conclusions because in the court of public opinion, anybody can make any conclusion based on whatever they want. Facts, no facts, distorted facts. And that's what you can do in the court of public opinion. There's no presumption of innocence in the court of public opinion. There's only a presumption of innocence in a court of law. So we don't know. There is an investigation of Judge Kavanaugh based on 12 complaints that were filed, and that's being investigated. It's either by the 7th Circuit or the 10th Circuit right now. So we'll see what happens with that, but for now and maybe in the future, he's Justice Kavanaugh on the United States Supreme Court.
Amazing documentary. What are your views on industries that have the biggest challenges for women in the workplace? Are there any in particular? Now, we've seen, of course, in the Cosby-Weinstein era of recent, that we immediately say, well, of course the entertainment business is rife with this. And I don't know whether, Marta, your years starting out when you did Dream On, one of my favorite shows on HBO, whether you were watching all of this happening in your industry. I don't know if this is something I'm not asking you to speak about it publicly, but it does seem as if that's where we're focused. We're not focused on law firms right now. We're not focused on hospitals. We're focused on Hollywood. And
Hollywood's loud. Hollywood's very, very loud. I think it's in front of the camera. I think there are many industries that have as big of a problem as Hollywood has. Any industry where there are men who feel empowered to take advantage of women. I was just reading, was it today, about in the prison system, that female guards are being sexually harassed and forced to witness things that they should not be forced to witness. This is in our prison system.
I had that case about 10 years ago in California with correctional guards.
Wow.
Yeah.
are there other industries you're seeing?
Yes,
In
and
your view,
here's the other industries.
Yeah.
Business world, the religious world,
Wait, what does business world
the
mean?
sports world, the financial world, the educational world. In other words, every
world.
single
World.
every single world. Why does the
world.
entertainment industry get? Because we have, I call it the cult of celebrity. This is what the press and the public, obviously, otherwise the press wouldn't care, is interested in, is what happens to celebrities. So I take it as a teaching moment. That's what all this is, teaching moments. But I'm dealing with, women who are sexually harassed on Wall Street, women who are sexually harassed, you name it, every single world you can think of. It's because it's about power. It's who has it, taking advantage of those who don't have it. It's not limited to the entertainment world.
Which makes...
No, it goes, I mean, not just industry as well. I mean, wasn't Betsy DeVos just talking about,
Colleges and universities, Title IX.
yes.
And you saw in the film that I had that case.
That's right.
Against the University of Connecticut. That was a Title IX
Right.
case for the women who alleged that they were raped at the University of
Right.
Connecticut.
So
And I
it's
do
not
have to
just-
commend them. University of Connecticut took prompt action. That was excellent. The legislature in Connecticut
Right.
convened a hearing right away. It was just lightning speed, unusual, and they did a great job in Connecticut.
So it's beyond industry. It's
Yeah, but
our
there's more to
society.
be done all over the country. Yeah, but Betsy DeVos now thinks that those who are accused don't have enough rights.
that's right.
I know, poor babies.
Yeah.
So anyway, fine, everybody should have rights. But then there should be fairness as well,
Exactly.
especially for the victims.
Last question. What advice, this is actually a nice question to go out on. What advice would you give a young woman wanting to attend law school to be a woman's rights attorney?
Do it.
If you're...
Because there's a great need. There are not enough women's rights attorneys for lots of reasons which we don't have time to go into. But you will have plenty of clients, and you just need to do it. And we need you, and there are plenty of attorneys will help train you and get into it, and you will have a very satisfying career. So yes, there's plenty of work for you. We need you. We want you. Get out there and do it, and then tell me you did.
I was going to say, please write us to tell us if you do. If you're an Academy Award judge, December 8th, this is your film, all right? Nominate this film. I want to thank you all for coming and joining us, and of course, Marta Kaufman, Sophie Sartain, and Gloria Allred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you again at the 92nd Street Y in the Forum on Law, Culture, and Society.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Thane. Thank you.
Thank you for my scarf.
And come on up and say hello.